Hello, welcome to another episode of Pass the Cheese, Please. My name is Jackie. With us today is Haskell. Welcome, Haskell.
Thanks for having me, Jackie.
Yeah, I'm always happy to see you and talk to you, whichever way it is.
Sometimes in person, sometimes not.
Yeah, Haskell and I used to be neighbors, and we have just continued our friendship, our relationship since then. And I consider myself very lucky to be a part of that.
I do too, especially
Oh, look at
when
you.
you're my COVID walking buddy.
Yeah. We didn't live too far apart, and so we would meet, and we'd be like, "Where do we want to walk today?" And walk around for like an hour. It was great.
Yeah,
But Haskell, like everyone else, has moved away from me. So one day we'll be reunited.
I mean, you could walk to me. It's just
I know.
a little far.
It just hasn't happened. This is supposed to be really nice weather this week, so maybe we'll make it happen.
Do that.
Ellie is awake and excited, so maybe she might be making her first appearance on the on this. We'll see. She's always just been referred to briefly. She's always been like sleeping or wandering around. So yeah.
Oh, there she is.
There she is. It's a little embarrassing. A couple episodes ago, a friend that I was talking to was like, "Do I hear some water?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's her cat fountain." And I didn't even think to like unplug it, so you can hear it in the background the entire time. So that's fun.
Well, I'd rather the meows, the soft purrs of Ellie.
Yes. Yes. She's very vocal. She's got
Or
a
the
lot to say.
loud purrs.
She's not afraid to say it.
She's a strong woman.
She is, and I respect that and appreciate that about her.
I do too.
Yeah. It does make it easy when you're like trying to look for like cat sitters when you gotta like they're mostly okay on their own, but you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe make sure she has food every few days. And so the fact that people like her is really beneficial for me.
Good, because I was gonna say, what's not to like?
I mean, I agree, but I'm also biased and I understand that, you know.
No, I love hanging out with her because she is so like, I'm gonna do this because I'm in charge. Like she has no like regard or hesitation in what she does. She's just the queen and she knows
Yeah.
it. Such a deep.
She's not afraid to say whatever she wants to say. But so I had Mabel a couple weeks ago, and Ellie, when it gets colder, she is really the only time she's really snuggly with me. She likes to be under a blanket, like in between my legs, or she'll like sleep next to me under a blanket. And if it's nice out, she's not she's not into that. But I had Mabel a couple weeks ago, and Mabel is always wanting to be like next to you, right on top of you, all that kind of stuff. And Ellie, I would notice, would sit like on the couch with us, but would have her back to us. And so she would be like, "I'm here, but I want plausible deniability because I don't want to see what's happening."
I just want to be in this space.
Yeah.
You're in my space, but I'll just turn away and not make a scene.
You don't bother me, I won't bother you. That's how she rolls. And I respect that,
I do too.
Yeah. So I know that you were somebody that I originally kind of talked about the initial idea with. So that's part of the reason that you're eating with me today, which I'm a big fan of. I love that you're doing it. You got some wine as well.
Wine.
Yeah.
And
And I know that I told you, but I haven't done any like wine drinking during this. Like part of it is because I just haven't been drinking a lot during this quarantine. I just kind of feel like I don't really need to get drunk by myself with my cat. That's not really the vibe I'm going for during all this. But
there's no social events, so
right. Yeah. And I am more of a social drinker, like I do like to, when you go to parties, kind of thing. But it also, because I drink, so little, it's very hard for me to go through a bottle of wine in like a normal amount of time. So yeah.
Next thing you know, 2 days later, you're still working on the same bottle of wine.
Right. And it's not that I don't like it. It's just, kind of hard to do by yourself.
Yeah. I mean, a bottle of wine is really meant for sharing.
It
that
is.
is the point. That is the reason it is that size.
Definitely. I did this with friends because from the idea from you of a wine tasting where we got a couple of wines and then we split it up in between, the three of us, and we all drank it together. Which that basic explanation is exactly what wine tasting is. But I mean, like social distance wine where, you know, you
Yeah.
drop it off at people's houses.
Yeah. So maybe the audience might need that idea, but basically you take pick out 3 bottles of wine, and then one person splits the wine and then delivers it to each house. And then you go back to Zoom and taste them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. So it's like you're drinking together, but you're in your houses. Anyway, so I did that with friends, and I was like, oh, should I get 3 or 4 bottles? And I was like, I'll just get 3, you know, like I can't figure out a fourth. And very quickly realized that 3 bottles of wine in between 3 people is still very hard to drink.
a bottle of wine.
Yeah. We did not finish all 3 bottles of wine.
Thankfully, it's a tasting, but yeah, that's at that point, it's a bottle of wine that you're drinking. So yeah.
Yeah.
We did ours over. We did the wine tasting first, and then we played Jackbox games. So allowed it to go longer.
Yeah, smart. Well, we can move into our first segment, which is called Pass the Cheese, where I compliment the guest. And so I just wanted to say, like, one of the things that I really appreciate about you, I appreciate you. I mean, I do that too, but that was a really awkward way to say it. I appreciate about you is you are so like welcoming and warm and like totally like I can bounce anything off of you and I can talk to you about anything, which is really great because a lot of people aren't willing to create that space or don't want to. And yeah, and so thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
Thanks. And that's something I really strive for. And it's interesting when I don't feel like people can feel like they're open with me, because I am opinionated, but I still want to make sure people feel supported. And my opinion does not matter in 99% of the times that I share it. So, but that's good to hear. So thank you.
Yeah, it's working. I know I am also somebody's opinionated, surprise, surprise. But it is like so often I'm working on this with myself, but so often somebody, you know, says something and I'm trying to like fix it or trying to help or trying to give like, oh, well, this happened. And I have to, you know, remember to take a step back. Not everybody wants that. You know, a lot of people just want to be heard. A lot of people are just like, I already know what I'm doing, but this is kind of the thing that had happened. And so I'm trying to get better about that, instead of just like, here, I can fix it, because sometimes it also can't be fixed right away. Sometimes you need to sit with it for a little bit. Yeah.
I've actually thought about that too. And in kind of the zodiac circles, right? So me as a Capricorn, that's something that's kind of stereotypical, is wanting to give out advice, right? Whenever someone has a problem, get out advice. But what I've been trying to specifically do is pair a little bit of advice with but I see you and that's really hard. So whatever you do, that's great. Like, you know, kind of pairing that with both sides. So you give a little bit of advice, but also you make sure that they feel like they're heard. Right,
because I think for a lot of people, because communication and so much about this is like really important, and you know, tone and the words you say, I think a lot of people might take that as like, oh, they're not listening to me, you know, and that's not, you know, I don't want to speak for the two of us, but I know that that's not what I'm doing. You know, I'm just like, oh, you need some help and I want to help you, kind of thing. So I also realized, as I see my lips moving, this is the first time I've worn makeup on this. I went to an apple orchard with some friends and I was like, you know what? Like, this is a little bit different than just going to someone's backyard to hang out. Like, let me, you know, class it up a little bit.
We're in the public.
Yeah, we are. But I just I haven't really felt the need to wear makeup, and you know, who cares, you know?
Yeah, you're at home.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I don't super care that I'm filming myself, you know, like, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I mostly look the same. It's really like the eyebrows that I can tell when I don't have them, because they disappear.
I would say definitely the lipstick. I mean, you chose obviously a darker lipstick.
Yeah, it was a bold choice, I knew, but I was like, it's fall.
I think it's appropriate for an apple orchard. I think you did a great job. I like it.
Thank you. This is Fenty Rihanna.
Ooh, yeah, expensive.
It is, and also like I bought this and my favorite red with Fenty in February.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You have to use it at some point. What's the point of buying it if you don't get to use it?
I know, and I was like, do you think I could return this because it's not getting used? Or like, nope, you can't do that.
Actually, she just had a fashion show yesterday, apparently. Yeah. I need to watch that.
I know, I've seen the pictures. Wow. Very exciting.
Activity as soon as we're done filming.
Yeah, I think that's a worthy
Look
rest of the
amazing
night.
from what I saw.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I've just been trying to be better with my dollar and give it to people who, you know, need it, deserve it, kind of thing. You know,
Mhm.
not just companies by white people. You know.
Yeah. And I mean, she has great products. Like they're
Yes.
very high quality. That's why I was like, ooh, expensive because it's
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
And she also like uses models that look different and are different, and you know all this kind of stuff. And we need
yeah.
to normalize that kind of thing. And
I think that's a no-brainer
yeah,
going for the brand.
I know.
Mhm.
One would hope so. So I guess this also kind of leads into my next segment, or the second one that I have. There's not really an order ever, sometimes, you know, but it's called Wine About It. And so I guess we're kind of whining about all these companies that are telling us that we need to look a certain way. And that's not, I'm not interested in that, you know? No,
So should I whine about a company?
no. I just was, you know, generally gesturing of like, this is the thing that happens in the universe and we all experience it.
Yeah. And I mean, especially right now, I think that a lot of companies are trying to pivot and trying to stay relevant. I would say that it's been better though during COVID. I
That's
haven't
good.
seen as much company pressure, and I haven't really seen that much corporatism in general. But maybe it's because I'm not paying attention because there's so much worse to pay or so much more to pay attention to. So
Yeah, it is really interesting. Like you see I've seen a lot of gestures that feel, I mean, feel performative for lack of a better word, you know, and I've seen like some stuff where people are like, oh, you can spend up to $150,000 on a pride float and pride didn't happen. Where are you putting that money in June? You know, because you don't have to spend that money on a float for this, you know, for a pride celebration in a big city because that didn't happen this year.
mhm.
What are you going to do with that money? Are you going to put it to an LGBTQ plus? Well, I don't quite remember all of the letters, but you know, like, are you going to put it?
IA plus.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Are you going to put it to an organization or you know something that helps that?
Yeah, and a lot of them probably didn't.
Right? Yeah, I'd say probably didn't. Um, and again, like you know, with everything, you know, in May and June with the Black Lives Matter, you saw stuff that like memes that were like, oh, companies like Black Lives Matter, and it would be emojis of all these white people, and then they say Black Lives Matter, and then people of color and Black people start showing up in you know for this like emoji representation. You're like,
Mhm.
oh, it's funny, but it's sad because it's true. Like,
Like you are you talking about emojis finally having people of color? Is that what you're saying?
no, it was a tweet that somebody said
I haven't seen.
like, hmm.
I don't think I saw that meme.
Mm. But ultimately, it was just saying companies were saying Black Lives Matter, and that's what they started incorporating Black people and people of color and BIPOCs. But you know, if you looked at their history, it was all white people. You know, and part of it is, you know, unfortunately, like until somebody calls something or until somebody tells you that something is wrong, you know, you're not really going to see it.
Mhm,
It's unfortunate that that's happening in 2020, but it is, and
mhm.
better late than never. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, and I think that a lot of people don't buy into it because all these companies that have said that they are doing this, they have gone back to business as usual, just like the rest of the country. Um, so, and also, I mean, one thing that's become more clear to me throughout the summer and heading into fall is that all the stuff that happened with the Black Lives Matter movement during the summer, especially when George Floyd was first killed, um, that was just a time for when people that are against the movement to be really quiet. Like it was a nice like 3 to 4 weeks of really quiet from the other side, and I will say other side because they are literally the other side.
Yep.
And now as Trump and the reelection thing gets closer and closer, I've been seeing a lot more of people that are anti-BLM because now they finally feel like it's appropriate to go back to normal. And unfortunately, companies have been complicit in that because even though there's been so many stories that have been released about, for instance, I think about Ellen, right? So Ellen was saying, or the people that work for Ellen were saying that she was hostile in her work environment. but she's still on TV. Nothing's changed.
Right.
It's the same thing. So all of it, you said could be performative. I would say it is performative completely. And some people see through it and some people don't.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone should see through it, because unless they are parading around and still getting money and or still giving money to the organizations that are actually trying to uplift minority communities, then they were just seizing the moment because they had to, because everybody was.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's been also interesting. The people who have been very silent during this time, that silence has been very deafening. But this reminded me of something that I saw right before we jumped on this, where there was there's a like how big is it, I'm not totally sure, but at the time of this filming, earlier this week was the debates between Biden and 45. In that 45 very clearly did not denounce white supremacy, and he told supporters of the Proud Boys or whatever that movement is, to
Stand back and stand by.
yeah, thank you. And now there is a slight movement that I saw on social media of people of the community LGBTQ plus IA.
I saw that. I know exactly what you're going to say. Keep going.
They're trying to reclaim the Proud Boys.
Yes.
And I support that. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's
hilarious.
It's so great.
Sorry. So I just want to explain for the viewers at home. What I just saw actually just a couple minutes before we got online, as I'm scrolling and I see on Facebook like two men kissing, and then they were like hashtag Cowboys. And I think that's so awesome, because if someone were to look that up, especially from the other side,
mm-hmm.
that would be hilarious. That they're just trying to figure out where to go, and when's the next rally.
Right.
And they see these gay men doing these vile things, and
mm-hmm.
they're going to hell, like all that.
I just, I mean this from like a standpoint that is like partially as like me as a human, but also like I truly just don't understand why people think banning something will make it go away. Like taking back the rights of people who are trans, and like saying that they can be fired from their jobs if they're trans, they don't get medical care. Like I don't understand why you think that means that they'll just disappear all of a sudden. Man, I guess it's a part of like you're unwelcome, but the reality is these people existed always. They were just hidden and scared and afraid. And that's like, why do we want to force that again? Like nobody benefits from that.
I think that people on the other side, I'm just going to keep saying that, would argue that it would go away, because then people would choose not to be, quote, out, unquote. And then thus they won't feel uncomfortable going to the restroom with somebody that happens to be of the opposite gender or the opposite sex. So I think it's important to bring it back to that of like, in theory, their goal is to suppress and oppress. And it's easy to do because the United States was built on suppression, oppression. And some people think that it still like works. And it does work in some ways too. Like keep in mind, like the movement, like the trans movement, I mean, obviously it's been since the 70s and 80s that it's been political, but the Supreme Court and other courts have just started ruling over the past like 8 years or 10 years on those cases. So obviously there's still a lot of work to do, but the point is they've been able to oppress and suppress for the past how many centuries or millennia, right? So if someone's conservative and love the past, then in theory, they think that they can stay in the past, even though the majority are like, this doesn't even affect me, so why?
Well, and also like, I just truly don't understand why we're still arguing why people think this is a choice now. Like, why do people still think that this is a choice? Like, it's a choice to put this shirt on that I wore today, but the way that I grew up, and I don't know. I mean,
I've had conversations with people recently that do think it's a choice, and that's only because the performance of gender is a literal conscious choice, right? I
yeah,
mean, the performance of gender, the identification of gender is not a conscious choice,
yeah,
um, but the performance definitely is, and that's what they're trying to suppress. So they would argue like you can choose to put on, women's clothing, even though you know what I mean. So
right.
they would argue differently, and I always go back. Honestly, I go back to, and this conversation that I'm thinking of ended like this too. Mind your own business. Like I think if everyone minded their own business, the world would be free from wars, free from poverty. Like honestly, like it would solve literally every single issue in the world.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna put it on record. Mind your business. If it does not affect you, then stay quiet.
I was looking off a couple times. There's this couple that's walking by and they have a wagon that has two small dogs in it, and so it
Oh,
was very
cute.
cute and a little distracting. Not to take away from what you said, but yeah, you know, trans lives and people who are non-binary, that is something that I know less about, or I feel less comfortable in, my knowledge of it. And I've been thinking about the last couple weeks, and I've always considered myself to be female, but have more like kind of a masculine energy, or like, and I think it's because society has told me that certain traits about myself are more masculine. And because I am a little bit more pushy, I can be a little bit more aggressive. I could be, a little bit more vocal. I've been called bossy. I've been called bitchy. I've been called all these things that
But those
can be,
aren't gender. Those shouldn't be gendered.
they
But
shouldn't be.
mhm.
But yeah, but so with me sitting here with that of like, okay, these qualities or these traits that can be more considered, and bitchy is not considered uh, masculine. That is always a negative feminine trait. But
Yeah.
all of these things, like why do I display myself as I do, and yeah, it's just been kind of interesting of does do I consider myself like non-binary? Do I consider myself more masculine? Just kind of sitting with what that means,
Mhm.
and and the choices that I've made to the way that I portray myself. And so yeah, so that's been interesting. And but I mean, at the end of the day, like part of me wants to talk to somebody, who is this and be like, well, why? But the reality is like, it doesn't affect me. So why do I care?
Yeah.
It's great that I want to learn about it, but they don't have to tell me. Like, that's not on them to do that. It's on me. So yeah, just kind of sitting with that, like, okay.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you say that tiny part at the end, especially because that was part of the conversation that I had that I'm thinking of. I was gonna share for you because I'm not sure if you've seen it before, as well as the viewers. So
Yeah.
I'll share my screen if I can find it. There is a really great resource that I
Well,
happened on.
I was,
Was
please do that. But also, I will put in any links that you want me to put in this episode. And so, if it's a website or something, we can definitely put that up. But yes, please do. We appreciate all knowledge during and education during this.
um, yeah, so and I'm looking for it still. It's really hard to find. And I've texted it, before, but I'm trying to figure it out. But anyways, so what it describes is it's a butterfly, and it shows the four, like domains of gender, sex, sexuality, and expression. And I think it's really invaluable, um, you know, for kind of dissecting and realizing what the different domains are, because most people just mix them up because
Mhm.
that's what we're taught. So I'm trying to find that, and it might take a little bit to find. So maybe we can continue this conversation. I'll keep looking it up.
We definitely can. We are kind of unofficially like at the end of our time.
Okay.
I don't keep an official time, but
Mhm.
I'm trying to keep these around 15 to 20 minutes. A lot of times I'm very unsuccessful
Mhm.
because we just have such great conversations.
Yeah, we
But yeah,
always
I
do.
would say if you can find it in like the next minute, we'll put it up there. Otherwise, I'll definitely include it into the episode. But if you remember maybe what the organization is called, maybe that would be helpful too.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard because it's not necessarily an organization.
Okay.
It's developed through the U, and one of the people that's like on staff or the professor at the U is the person that came up with it. And I googled their name and I didn't see it. Another option is maybe we can do an addendum, so we can like pause it and I can dive in really deep, and we can stay on the chat, and then you know what I mean? So
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you, other than this information that you are going to share with us, is there anything else that you want to plug or like give awareness to or anything like that?
no plugs. No plugs.
Okay, that's okay. Doesn't have to be.
Make sure that you are being anti-racist. All it's about.
I laugh, but please.
And it's not just. And one thing that I would say is, voting does not solve racism.
It does not. It's a
good
start.
Person or a certain party has nothing to do with the system of racism.
Yeah.
So that's all right.
Well, thank you very much, Haskel. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate everything that you've taught us and talked with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course. Happy to. Bye.
Bye.